Alright, so here we are again. This will be our sort of second in a series of spreadsheet videos. You notice I've actually still got the spreadsheet open that I was working on before, and I've sort of added a little bit of data to our practice spreadsheet. So we have the terminology spreadsheet that you're going to fill in, and we've got practice, and we'll fill this up as we go. So I've just sort of filled up a bit more detail in the practice workbook. Because we're going to look at things like fill down, fill right, and we're going to look at a fixed cell reference. So my formatting, I was playing this before and I've done a bit of error in the formatting. So I can use that tool and I can get rid of all the borders, which is fine. Now I can redo the borders again. And that's really just for the way that the thing looks. That's all it is, and there's no marks for presentation at the end of the day. It's more about the formulas and the content. So I'm going to center all these again. Oops, let's try it again. So they're sitting in the center of the cells, and having said that, we need to make sure that these are centered as well. So although there's no marks for formatting, it just, at your age, you should be doing it properly anyway. Alright, I'll put some results in that students there. Now we're going to assume that they got 3 tests, and to make life easy, I'm just going to go straight into the fill down option. If I have 10 in the first cell, and if I wanted that number to be the same over those students, I can click on the right hand corner, this little square back section of the corner of that cell, and if I drag it down, that same number, exact same number, is replicated into all those cells. Now typically that probably is not what you're going to want to do, but there is an option there to do that. If you use that fill down option, you don't normally use it for that, but anyway, there's one possibility that you can use it for. I'll give some more results from here. We'll say 12, 13, random result, of course, 15, 16, and we'll make John 19. Alright, so we've got 3 tests, 3 scores out of 20 for three different assessments, obviously. Now, we're going to want to work out the total for these 3 tests. And, of course, in this cell here, I'm going to simply add up. And I could do the same thing as we did before. I could do this. I could say 20 plus 20 plus 20, which is fine. It'll give me the answer of 60. And fantastic, but again, we've got to think flexibility in spreadsheets, and the question is, what happens if this test 3 all of a sudden becomes a test out of 25? Well, in other words, what I should have done was not used those actual numbers, but I should have used the cell references again. So it should be B4, and again, I'm going to add to it C4, and I'm going to add to that one a third test, which is D4. Now, we've actually got whatever is in cell B4, whatever's in cell C4, whatever's in D4. So it does it automatically for us. Tick. At the end of the day, we get the same answer, but if I change this test to 25, you'll notice the total will change. It goes up to 65. Alright, we'll put it back to 20 again to make things a little bit simple. Not a problem. Now, we want to total up for Ralph his 3 tests. Same thing, you could say equals 12 plus 10 plus 12. But we want to be a bit smart. We want to go the first cell plus the second cell, second test, of course, is what we're talking about here, and plus the third test, and we tick, and that will give him a total of 34. If I click in the cell formula bar at the top here, see what happens. It'll color code wherever the data is coming from. So we've got blue, red, purple, unless you're colorblind. Now, we'll just tick that. Now, I don't want to come down to this and then write the cell reference here. This is where the fill down option comes in. So again, it's really the same formula going across for each kid. It's Bob's going to have these 3 added up, Tom's going to have these 3, and I've only done it for the first student. Ralph's got a formula, we know it works. So we're going to click on the right hand corner again, and we're going to drag down. This is called fill down, and this always does it. It's a real pain, but it's alright. Just do that, and then we'll come back and do that. Alright, now I actually filled down from this first cell. So in theory, if I click on the next cell down, you would say, yeah, this should be B6 plus C6 plus D6. Okay, let's see what it's done. Oh, it's done it automatically for me. So it's automatically gone from B, C, D. It's gone down from row 5 to row 6. This one, same thing. So B7 plus C7 plus D7 without me having to put in the formula 5 times. Easy peasy, that's how we like it. Now, you remember before that we had this cell here and we actually worked out the results, that is the average for test 1 over those 5 students. And the way that we did it was we put in manually whatever the results were, and of course we know that that's wrong. Okay, so we didn't work that we determined that that wasn't the best way to go, because if I change his result to 17, you'll see that this will always remain at 14. The average never changes, whereas this one does. So I want the same formula. I want to work out the average, okay, for all 3 tests. This is the function, or this is the editing option, if you like, called fill right. So we can go all the way across, and I can keep on going all the way to the end of those cells. Now, again, the editing is a bit dodgy, so I'll turn that off, and then I'll turn it on again. So here's our first test average. Here's our second test average. Notice now that all the C's stay the same, and it picks up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Same thing here. So we've actually filled the original formula, we've taken it all the way across to the right, and up here we took the first formula and went all the way down as far as we wanted to go. And we're going to do the same thing with this one. This is our function formula. Click on the first cell. If we dragged all the way across, we get the same answer. Okay, and you'll notice a couple of things beginning to happen in Spreadsheet. It's just highlighting a few little issues you can probably work out. Obviously, if there's nothing over here, there's nothing in the final column yet. But what it's telling me is the average is 0 because there's nothing to add up, and it says divided by 0. Okay, so this function option, it will have no bits of data. In other words, if I put, for example, 1 in there, you notice that it should get a piece of data now. There it is. So in other words, the average function that we used here sort of depends on between B5 and B9. In this point here, it's only finding 1 bit of data. And if you can understand that, that's cool. Otherwise, we'll just move on. All right. So we want to work out the final result out of 20. Okay. Now we can do that in a number of ways. Let's do it using, we'll do it over here. If we want to turn a mark out of 60 to a mark out of 20, okay, I simply need to divide it by 3. So we can do that. So equals that divided by 3, and tick. In other words, oops, let's just do that again. Up here is where I wanted to do it. Equals, okay, so that mark out of 20, out of 60, we want it to make it to a mark out of 20. So we've got to take the mark out of 60, and we've got to divide it by 20. And obviously that should give us, oops, let's try that again, delete. Mark out of 60 to a mark out of 20. No, that's not how you do it, is it? No, of course not. Okay. 60 times x equals 20. So that means x equals 20 divided by 60. Whoa. So in other words, equals, to take this mark to a mark out of 20, I've got to multiply it by a variable. And then what I'll do is I think I'll better type that into that cell. I'll just cancel that one out. So that will be 60 times by, and I'll just put x has to equal a mark out of 20. And for those of you that are mathematical, you would work out then that x has to equal 20 over 60. That's actually the function. Well, we're going to do a formula for this in a minute and you'll see. Now, so what is the x? Well, the x actually is this number here. So let's use that. We'll say equals. There's our number. We want to multiply it by 20 over 60, which is the same as 2 over 6. So it's times 2 divided by 6. And I've got to use that bod math idea again. Or I could have 1 over 3, same thing, tick. And then this is my formula, and I'm going to fill that down. And again, if you look at the formatting, it's taken that formatting. We will get rid of that formatting there. We'll do it again. Put a border in, thick border. And I don't think I want it to that many decimal places, so I'm going to go down decimal places. Might leave it to 1, maybe. And we'll leave it at that. Now, here's the next level up. It's called a fixed cell reference. Okay. We know a couple of things. We know that our marks are always going to be out of 20. Okay. And so I'm going to come up with a formula now that says always take this cell. In other words, always divide whatever that answer is by 20. This is what we mean. Equals. So we still want that times, okay, oops, times, let's do that again. So we're taking that number there. We want to multiply it by 20 over 60. We know the 20 is not going to change. So we're going to click inside of that cell. There it is. Over. And now I could type in 60, but I'm going to actually select that in my formula now. Some of you might be able to tell me why. Alright, so the E4 is a number. Okay, I could put in 60, but I'm not. Now here's the fixed cell option. Everything always has to be out of 20, because it's always going to be a mark out of 20. So the way that I make that formula go back to the 20 is I put a string or dollar sign in front of each of the cell references. So that means keep the F always as F and keep the 4 always as 4. In other words, pick the same row in the same column every single time. Now that should give me the same answer. Touch wood. Good, it does. Now if I drag this down, I should get the exact same answer again. And as you can see, okay, it hasn't worked. Let's go back and see why. E5 times by that over, oh my goodness, okay. This is my error. I actually took the fixed cell reference, there it is, for that, but I forgot that I also need to make this total fixed cell reference as well. It's always going to be, when I said E4, if I would have put 60 down, it would have been fine. Let's do that. So if I just put the number 60, let's see if that's going to work. The numbers should be the same. Yes, so 60 works. I'll just cut that and move it over a little bit. Paste. Okay, so this is actually using a 60 in the actual formula. Okay, over here, we'll do the same formula again. So it's the number that we want to transfer times, now it was 20 over 60, but now I'm going to use the cell references. And it's going to be a fixed cell reference. We don't want J5. So it's going to be equal to this number divided by this number, and all of them are going to be fixed. So putting F4 in my cell, that means always take the function or whatever's in F4. When I put E4, that says always go back to E4. So don't change the formula when I fill it down for these two. In other words, it'll go E5, E6, E7, E8, E9, E10, and then the F4, E4, it'll always go back to the same number for those, I hope. Let's tick. Yep, first one's the same. And then we're going to drag down, or fill down, and we get the same answer. So specifically, this is the better way of doing it. And the reason is, if I change any one of these test scores, then the total will change. If the total changes, then this number, E4, will also change, but it will pick up whatever is in the cell E4. If I have this as 60, and if I change that test to be, say, out of 25, although the total, the formula is going to be 65 there, of course this function will only be 60 because of the way that I've done this formula. All right, fixed cell references are very complex and it will take a little bit of getting used to. We're going to look at some questions from the textbook and we'll probably attempt these, and then we're going to move on to graphing, but certainly the ones in the textbook, we will probably certainly do those together.